The violation notice trembled slightly in my hand as Councilman Wells strutted back to his luxury SUV, shooting me that practiced politician's smile that never reached his eyes. Around me, the Saturday morning farmers market continued in full swing, now with the added spectacle of watching my dream collapse in public. Ms. Vega, one of my regular suppliers, an elderly farmer named Gil, approached cautiously. Everything all right? I forced a smile, tucking the notice into my jacket pocket. Just city politics, Gil. The usual nonsense. But it wasn't the usual anything. This was the culmination of a targeted campaign against Roots, my farm-to-table restaurant that had become the unexpected darling of Harborview's culinary scene over the past 3 years. The notice cited unapproved agricultural activities on the restaurant's rooftop garden and patio, a garden that had passed inspection just 6 months earlier. My name is Sofia Vega, and at 38, I had transformed an abandoned warehouse in Harborview's struggling waterfront district into a restaurant that celebrated local food and the farmers who grew it. Every weekend, I personally selected ingredients at this farmer's market, building relationships with suppliers, and creating seasonal menus that had earned us national recognition. That success had put me squarely in the crosshairs of Councilman Wells and the development company he quietly represented, Coastal Hospitality Group, a corporate behemoth determined to transform our historic waterfront into a playground of luxury hotels and chain restaurants. They're just getting started, aren't they? The voice belonged to Meera Patel, owner of the independent bookstore next to Roots. She had appeared at my elbow, eyes fixed on Wells' departing vehicle. Looks that way, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Emergency meeting tonight? She asked quietly. I nodded. My place. 8 o'clock. As Meera walked away, I continued selecting produce for that evening's service, maintaining the appearance of normalcy while my mind raced. The waterfront merchants had been meeting regularly since Wells and his allies on the city council had revealed their revitalization plan 6 months ago. A plan that conveniently required pushing out established local businesses in favor of corporate chains and luxury developments. That night, the back room of my apartment above the restaurant filled with familiar faces, restaurant owners, shopkeepers, local artisans, and others who had built the waterfront district into the vibrant community it had become. They're picking us off one by one, said Omar, who ran the vintage record store on Harbor Street. First it was permit issues for Jason's art gallery, then those ridiculous noise complaints against the music venue, and now zoning violations for Roots. It's not just violations, I said, pulling out the notice. They're demanding I remove the entire rooftop garden and patio area within 10 days or face daily fines of $1,000. That's impossible, Meera exclaimed. The garden is integral to your restaurant concept. Exactly. I took a deep breath. And that's not all. Yesterday, I received this. I pulled out a formal letter and passed it around. An offer from Coastal Hospitality Group to purchase Roots for approximately half its actual value. The room erupted in angry exclamations, but I raised my hand for silence. This isn't unexpected. We've all known what Wells and his developer friends have been planning. What they don't know is that we've been planning too. I nodded to Marco, a former investigative journalist who now owned the coffee shop down the street. He opened his laptop and began a presentation that silenced the room. For the past 6 months, we've been building a case, he explained, displaying documents, photographs, and transcripts on the screen. Councilman Wells has been accepting bribes from Coastal Hospitality while using city resources to target businesses that refuse to sell. The evidence was damning: recorded conversations between Wells and Coastal executives, bank transfers to offshore accounts, falsified inspection reports, and internal emails discussing which businesses to target first. How did you get all this? Omar asked, stunned. Marco smiled grimly. Let's just say that developers aren't the only ones who can hire people with technical skills. Plus, it's amazing what people will say when they think no one's listening. We're taking this to the FBI, I announced. They've been building a public corruption case against several members of the city council, and our evidence completes their investigation. Why wait until now? Asked Jason from the art gallery. My business has been closed for 3 months. We needed enough evidence to ensure charges would stick, Marco explained. And we needed them to get explicitly corrupt with Sofia. Her restaurant is the crown jewel they want for their development, and Wells finally got careless enough to threaten her directly. I pulled out my phone and played a recording from 2 days earlier. Wells' voice clear and unambiguous. The zoning board does what I tell them to, Sophia. Sell to Coastal now, or I'll make sure Roots is shut down permanently. Nobody defies me in my district. The meeting continued late into the night as we finalized our strategy. By morning, we had a clear plan, one that would not just expose the corruption, but ensure our community could rebuild stronger than before. The next day, I operated Roots as if nothing had changed, welcoming the Sunday brunch crowd with my standard enthusiasm. What the customers couldn't see was the meeting taking place in a private dining room, where FBI agents were reviewing our evidence and preparing to move. At 3:00 p.m., I received a text from Marco. "It's happening. Turn on the news." I stepped into my office and switched on the small television just in time to see live footage of FBI agents entering City Hall during an emergency council meeting. A meeting Wells had called specifically to fast-track the waterfront redevelopment plan. The cameras captured Wells' face as agents approached the council dais, his expression shifting from confusion to panic as they announced the charges: bribery, corruption, extortion, and misuse of public office. By evening, the story had exploded across local and national news. 3 council members, 2 city inspectors, and 4 executives from Coastal Hospitality Group had been detained for questioning. Wells himself had been arrested in full view of the cameras, his carefully crafted political image shattered in an instant. I closed the restaurant early that night, gathering my staff to explain what had happened. They had known something was wrong, but hadn't been privy to our investigation or counter-strategy. "So what happens now?" asked Alina, my head chef and closest friend. "Even with Wells gone, the violation notice still exists." "Actually, it doesn't," I smiled, showing her an email from the city manager's office. "All recent citations against waterfront businesses are being reviewed due to potential improprieties in the inspection process." "You planned all of this," she said, shaking her head in amazement. "While they thought they were hunting you, you were hunting them." "Not just me," I corrected. "All of us, the entire waterfront community." Wells thought he could pick us off individually, but he never understood that we're stronger together. The following weeks brought sweeping changes to Harborview. With Wells and his allies removed from office, the city council underwent a transformation. Special elections were scheduled, and several waterfront business owners, including Mira, announced their candidacies. The revitalization plan was suspended pending a complete review, with community input prioritized in any future development decisions. Coastal Hospitality Group withdrew from Harborview entirely, their reputation tarnished by the corruption scandal. 6 months later, I stood on Roots' rooftop garden, now expanded and thriving, hosting a community celebration. The waterfront district had not just survived but was flourishing, with new businesses opening in previously vacant spaces and a renewed sense of local pride. Marco joined me at the railing, overlooking the harbor as the sun began to set. "Have you seen the news about Wells?" he asked. I nodded. The former councilman had accepted a plea deal, providing evidence against larger development interests in exchange for a reduced sentence. His political career was over, his reputation destroyed. "I never wanted revenge," I said thoughtfully, watching customers and community members mingle below. "I just wanted to protect what we built." "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense," Marco replied. Wells thought he was so powerful that no one would dare stand against him. His arrogance was his weakness. "And our strength was that we appeared weaker than we were," I added. "We let him think he was winning until we had everything we needed to take him down completely." That evening, as I addressed the gathered crowd, I found myself reflecting on the journey. 3 years ago, when I opened Roots, I named it to honor where our food comes from, the soil, the farmers, the traditions. But now that name means something more. It represents our community's roots, too deep to be easily pulled up, too interconnected to be divided. I raised my glass. To Harborview, not just surviving, but thriving on our own terms. The following week, I received an unexpected visitor at the restaurant, the new interim mayor, a longtime city council critic who had been appointed after the scandal. "Ms. Vega," she said, taking a seat at the bar during our afternoon lull. "I've been reviewing the events that led to the corruption investigation." I tensed slightly, unsure where this conversation was heading. "What you and the other business owners did was remarkable," she continued. "You protected not just your livelihoods but the character and integrity of this city." "We did what was necessary," I replied carefully. "Which is why I'm here." She placed a folder on the bar. The city is establishing a waterfront preservation and development commission to ensure nothing like this happens again. We need people with both vision and backbone. People like you. I opened the folder to find an official appointment letter with my name on it. We're rebuilding trust, the mayor explained. Who better to help than those who exposed the corruption in the first place? 1 year to the day after Wells had delivered his violation notice, I stood in City Hall as the newly formed commission unveiled its plan for the waterfront, a balanced approach that preserved the district's character while allowing for thoughtful growth and improvement. The farmers market where Wells had threatened me was now permanently established in a renovated waterfront pavilion. Jason's art gallery had reopened with a city-sponsored exhibition space for local artists. Mira's bookstore had expanded to include a community meeting center. And Roots? We were stronger than ever. Our rooftop garden, now a registered urban agriculture site that hosted educational programs for local schools. The restaurant had become a symbol of resilience, a reminder that sometimes, when people try to uproot you, they only make your foundation stronger. That night after closing, I watered the herbs and vegetables that grew in organized rows across our rooftop. The violation notice that had once threatened this space was now framed in my office, a reminder that power doesn't always reside where people think it does. Wells had believed his position gave him the right to decide who succeeded in Harborview and who failed. He never understood that true strength comes not from title or authority, but from community and conviction, the perfect ingredients for something that can't be bought, bullied, or broken. As I looked out over the waterfront, lights twinkling against the dark water, I smiled at how thoroughly Wells' plan had backfired. He had wanted to transform our community into something that served his interests. Instead, he had inadvertently united us into something stronger than we had been before, proving once again that sometimes the most powerful form of resistance isn't fighting back immediately, but watching, waiting, and choosing the perfect moment to reveal that you were never as vulnerable as they thought.